Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another night. Now, hopefully, we're not going to have the same tech issues that we had yesterday. So that was fun for those of you that were here for that. Now, I didn't do this yesterday because the tech stuff honestly just threw me for a loop. You don't have to turn on your cameras. I just want you to know you can't see it. I have a gargantuan screen now, like a television, like a 75-inch screen right here. And I can see your faces. Right now, I'm in a room with me and my brother. So say hi, David. Turn your camera and say hi so you can see him behind the scenes here. I would love to feel like I'm talking to an audience. There's hundreds of you here. We got more people on YouTube as well. But so if you're able to turn on your camera, turn it on. I'd love to be able to see you. I know you might, understand if you're doing something, you're busy. I get that. But if you are just sitting there looking at the screen, it allows me to draw from your energy. It helps me. It'll help me with the presentation. It'll help me through tonight because I can draw on your energy. I can see your facial expressions, and I'll scroll back and forth. The other thing I'll be doing is tonight we added a new layer. We'll be able to show some chat. So I'll be asking you for feedback from that. So Dave, you can show us what that looks like. So we'll have a means of showing the chat feed as well. Anybody watching on YouTube, this is happening in a Zoom room. If you're registered for the meeting, you can come in here into Zoom. Go ahead and fetch your journals because you're going to need them. And just as yesterday, we had a lot to cover. So we're just going to jump right into it and cover what we got to cover today. Awakening. As I started yesterday, success starts with awakening yourself to something. It starts with awakening yourself to something. But awakening yourself to what? To what? Well, to yourself. But what does this word mean? Yourself. I mean, technically, that is the right way to write it, right? Yourself. But as time has progressed for me for the last several years, this has not felt like the right way to word it. In fact, I like to think of it now as two words. Yourself. Yourself. Well, if it's two words, well, let's go back to the title card here. That means this word right here needs to be updated. This word isn't right. So let's just go ahead and update that. Awaken yourself to your capability. Okay. All right. Well, now that we covered that and got that out of the way, we're just going to put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. Let's recap yesterday. We covered a whole bunch of things. Let's recap a few points that are really important to make sure you had takeaways, especially if you weren't here or if you missed it. By the way, those of you that are here, thank you so much. I had this scheduled a while ago. I didn't know there was going to be a presidential debate at the same time that was having this. So I want to say thank you to all of you that are here tonight live for this. I know many will be catching this on replay. I'll be catching the debate after. But let's recap what we covered from yesterday. Responsibility equals empowerment. Taking responsibility doesn't mean taking blame. Responsibility means empowerment. It doesn't mean you're taking blame. The other thing we talked about is you need to focus on your part and ignore the rest. When you're trying to change and you're trying to move forward and you're trying to get new results in your life, just focus on your part. Focus on the things you did. Focus on the things that you can control. Don't focus on all the stuff that you can't control. And then we have the other thing we talked about is it's up to me to clean up this mess. Hey, I was there where I looked around myself, looked around my life, and realized I got myself into a bit of a mess. Anybody here ever gotten yourself into a bit of a mess at different times in your life? Doesn't even have to necessarily be with your body, right? It could be just with your life. And then we have this other one that we covered, the big one, which is victim mentality keeps us stuck. If a person lives their life in victim mentality thinking, it keeps us stuck. Keeps us stuck in old patterns. And the other takeaway I definitely would want you to have is that fault finding does not equal empowerment. Fault finding doesn't equal empowerment. And we've got to be careful because in the realm of weight loss, especially, but definitely in all sorts of areas of personal development and personal growth, it can be so tempting to get stuck in looking for blame, looking for fault. It can feel productive, but it's not productive. Now, I'm going to reference a bunch from a book today. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. I love this book. It's a great book. I highly recommend everybody read this book. And we're going to read a section from it in today's call. And rather than me just reading from the book where you're unable to follow along, I thought it might be convenient to put it up here on the screen for you. This is on page 265. No longer can you derive sickly comfort from blaming your parents, society, your early experiences, or the injustices of others for your present troubles. My goal is to get you to a place over time where you're taking responsibility for yourself. When you're taking responsibility, you lose the ability to derive that weird sense of comfort from blaming other people, other things, other circumstances. That's what happens. Awareness, awakening to your ability to choose will create this. He goes on to say, these things may and should help you understand how you got where you are. It's important to understand how you got here. It's really important to understand how you got here because you want to, keep your mistakes original, right? So there is utility in looking in the past. I don't want to say that there's zero utility in looking backwards to look into the past. There definitely is utility in that. But there's a difference between looking at it to get a lesson and looking at it and getting stuck back there. Now, blaming them, or even yourself, for the past mistakes, however, will not solve your problem or improve your present or your future. If there's only one takeaway that you take from this entire 3 days, it's I want you to take away that blaming, going on a blame hunt, going on a fault hunt is not going to solve your problems. It's not going to improve your present, and it's not going to improve your future. He goes on to say, there is no merit in blaming yourself. The past explains how you got here. But where you go from here, now that is your responsibility. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. Well, what is the choice? What is the choice? Well, let's take this here. We've got a person. Doesn't matter who it is, just a person, right? It's not even one single color. This is just the every person. Doesn't matter. You're old, young, white, black, male, female. Doesn't matter. Just a person. And this person's going through life. And what this is here, this line represents a timeline. And the flow of time is going to the right. So as we drift to the right of the screen, we are moving further into time. So to the left, that's the past. To the right, that's the future. Where the person is, that's the present moment. And we're going to do this because I believe humans learn well when we not only hear things, we can conceptualize it. We can have a visual to look at. Sometimes sounds and tactile things are helpful too, but we're on the internet. I can't give you something to touch. But I can give you a picture to look at. Now, I understand there's some people in the world you don't think in pictures, but the vast majority of humans tend to think in pictures. I know I'm one of them. And when I'm attempting to understand complex mindset topics, I find it's helpful to have a visual. It gives me something to place these concepts on to wrap my mind around it. Because for you to become a thin person, you have to change how you think. For you to become at a place where, let's say you're earning more money, you have to change how you think. If you want to get any new results in life, you have to change how you think. It's the only way you're going to get there. And so we're going to crack open some mindset concepts for the purposes of helping you understand what's happening. Because my hopes are that as you begin to understand what's happening, as you go through life, it'll become easier to spot what you're doing in the moment, which is what I'm looking for. So here in our timeline, we know that at some point in the future, our person is going to have a triggering event. At some point in the future, this individual, it doesn't matter who the individual is, every individual will have an opportunity to be triggered. Trigger doesn't necessarily have to mean negative, although in the context of today, it'll often be referring to an unpleasant experience, but triggers can be for positive reasons too. And so our person going through time When a triggering event happens, what occurs? Well, what occurs is the old patterns. You see, I've spent yesterday, and for those of you in the guild, I spend a lot of time working with you, helping you see what it is you're doing, helping you see what's happening. What's interesting is, turns out just telling someone what they're doing isn't enough to get them to stop doing it. Isn't that frustrating, right? Like if any of you, give me a 1 in the chat if you've ever had this. You're like, you know what you should do, but you only seem to be able to find out after the fact you did it. Some of y'all jumped the gun with the 1. You only find out after the fact that you did it, right? I am regularly in my life looking backwards and going, oh shit, I did it again. I did it again. Man, why didn't I see myself when I was doing it, right? Don't we have that problem where we see ourselves doing it again? And so what happens is a trigger will happen and our mind is going to want to default to the way it always goes. Why? Even once we've identified the way we always go is not the way we want to go, why do we always do it? Why do we keep going back that way? Because we have these patterns in our mind. Now, I want you to think of these patterns as like a program. This thing happens, then this thing happens, and this thing happens, and this thing happens. It gets fired off. A triggering event, it's like hitting a button and a program is started. And so a triggering event comes up and the old patterns are fired off. There's a lot of songs that talk about this. Bradley Cooper from A Star Is Born. Maybe it's time to let the old ways die. Right? How about that one? Or maybe Henry Ford. If you do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Or one that I couldn't seem to find who it's attributed to. The hardest prison to escape is the mind. Right? If you just start looking in poems, music, philosophy, all sorts of places, you'll find that people are pretty well aware that it's hard to break the old patterns. It's hard to let the old ways die. Even once we've decided it's time to let the old ways die. So a triggering event often leads to old patterns. Well, what are some examples of these old patterns? It could be like ruminating on past injustices, right? Any of you ever gotten yourself stuck? You just can't seem to let it go. You're constantly focusing on an injustice from the past, something that occurred. Or maybe the old pattern is to criticize your self-worth. You're looking at yourself with the benefit of hindsight and you're being very critical of yourself. Maybe it's that. Or maybe you're just being critical of yourself in the moment. Perhaps it's just repeating old scripts. What I mean by an old script, it's this narrative, this dialogue that you fire off in your head. Something happens, you're like, see, I knew it. I was not any good. Dang it, they found out. Oh, I'm not a good enough mom. Oh, all the other moms are better. Oh, man, I'm not a good enough dad. I should be out there playing catch with them. Just whatever. You just fire off this old script. Or perhaps the old pattern is to go to your echo chamber of disbelief. Look, if you've struggled with belief within yourself, there's a high likelihood if we look around your life around you, you probably hang out with some disempowering people. You probably got some losers in your life. Let me tell you, I had some losers in my life, and I had to walk away from the losers. And a loser is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just, you are not where I want to go, and you are holding me back. In the guild, we have a phrase, a thing that we talk about, a cultural thing it might be, which is, we don't offer chairs. A person will come in like, oh, I'm having a really hard day. I got really stressed at work. I don't know how I'm going to take care of my calories. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. I'm really struggling with some food noise. I just got this big thing tomorrow. I'm just so stressed. What ends up happening is people, I want to make them feel better. You know what? Let's let them off the hook. It's okay. Maybe you don't need to try too hard tonight. Maybe you're being too hard on yourself. Maybe what you could do is just take a break from your diet. That's what you could do just for tonight, and it'll be better tomorrow. It might even be your spouse or a parent or somebody doing that and just taking a break, telling you to take a break. That's called offering you a chair. You were struggling and having a hard moment, and in your moment of weakness, somebody walks up and says, here's a lovely chair. Would you like to sit in it? No, we don't do that. Because you see, I would instead say, you're going to keep going, right? Oh, I need a chair. Okay, great. Where are you going to go get the chair? Because you see, you got to help yourself. If you want a chair, you got to ask for it, and you go get your own damn chair. When you're struggling, when you're trying to pick a new thing, you got to be careful. You go to your echo chamber of disbelief and you hang around people that got a bunch of stinking thinking around them, they're going to offer you the easy way out. They're going to keep you stuck. That's why you shouldn't take advice from people that don't have what you don't want, or that don't have what you want. I learned real quick to stop taking weight loss advice from people that aren't thin. Knowing what to do isn't enough. Knowing how to keep doing it, that's the magic, isn't it? Or how about another old pattern? We invalidate our experiences. Oh, I only lost 2 pounds this week. I only lost 5 pounds in the last 4 weeks. I only did a mile in 14 minutes. I only. You're just diminishing your accomplishments. That's an old pattern. It's amazing how I'll see people constantly. They don't want to brag on themselves. Why? Oh, I don't want to make someone feel bad. Again, that's a cultural thing. If you hang out with people that they make you feel bad for sharing a victory, that's not called a supportive person. A person in support of your dreams, even if they're struggling, they're happy for you. They're happy for you that you're kicking ass. You should be free to brag to them, to get excited with them. But the old pattern might be to diminish. You might have been diminishing yourself all the time. Another one, a really problematic one for some people, is the old pattern is to go find a self-pity party, right? Sometimes you get pity from other people, but it's just a pity party. You know, look at me over there being all pitiful, feeling all sad. I don't get anything done now, does it? You see, you don't have to be trapped by this. You don't need to be trapped by the old patterns. You do not. It is very easy, though, to fall prey to the belief that you can't change. Some of you might even be surrounded by people that are telling you you cannot change. But you can change. You truly, truly can. You have to remember that this right here, this is a choice. This is a choice, and we need to understand this. You must understand this. Now, I'm going to explain it in a way tonight that I hope as I say it, you're going to be like, what did we say yesterday? No, duh, Chris. I hope I'm going to explain it in a way where you're like, well, this is pretty obvious. Did you write a presentation like this? Does your journal contain notes like this? Are you walking around talking about the stuff that I'm talking about tonight? Do you spend time thinking about it? It's one thing to understand what I'm saying. It's another to actually be practicing it and living it. So I'm really going to try to break this down because these are some of the early mindset shifts that I had in the beginning of my journey that I truly believe are a major reason for why I was successful. I really do. But I didn't understand what was happening. I figured that out later so I could articulate it and explain it to others. So let's jump right in, right here. This is a choice. We need to understand what the choice is. So let's dive in here. So we have a person, they're going through time, and we know at some point in the future, we're going to have a triggering event, and we know that typically the triggering event is going to lead to old patterns. Where's the choice? Choice implies options. I'm not seeing any options. Well, we see option one, which is the old pattern, but there's option two. Option two. What's option two? I mean, it's the new pattern, right? The old and the new. Well, let's just take a look at just the new pattern for a second. What did we say in the book that we just read by Maxwell Maltz, Psycho-Cybernetics? The choice is yours. The choice is yours. Okay. Here's the challenge. Like, it's a real challenge. And that is you don't get to know what's coming. Give me a 2 in the chat if life at some point in the last year has sucker punched you with a big triggering event that you didn't know was coming. Give me a 2 in the chat if that's happened. All right, twos. Right? Isn't life, I mean, some of y'all, this might have happened today. Something unexpected happened to you that you weren't expecting. You're not meant to know what's coming. You don't get to know that. However, I can assure you, that something is coming. Something's coming. There's going to be some event in your future. It could be next week. It could be tomorrow. It could be next month. It could be next year. It could be in 5 years. I don't know. There is something that is going to come along and it's going to trigger you. And it's going to trigger you to want to do the old patterns and you're not going to see it's coming. I'm going to be honest, the likelihood of it happening in the near term is probably pretty high. Because it could be something as simple as an unexpected thing happens at work. Your spouse absentmindedly says something a little not friendly. Not meaning anything by it. Somebody cuts you off. You get into an accident. You knock over something and you break it. I don't know. But just something happens that triggers you to have an emotional response. But you have to remember, though, what is coming is a choice. What lays ahead of you, yeah, it's a triggering event, but you can't always control those. You don't always have full control over the fact that a triggering event is coming. And you don't even get to know they're coming. But what we do know is you have a choice coming your way. On the other side, the immediate other side, I'm talking the next second on the other side of that triggering event, you have a choice to make. And when you first begin looking at this choice, the choice to go fire off the old patterns or to do the new patterns, you're going to discover something, which is this choice is really hard to make. Just becoming aware of the fact that you could be making this choice is not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. You felt this. You're constantly getting stuck doing the old things over and over and over again. This choice is going to be hard. Now, whenever I ask a question like this, I hope all of you right away are asking in your head, why? Explain yourself, sir. You're making a bold claim. Why? I mean, I know it. But it's not enough to tell me what's obvious. In other news, water is wet and the sun is hot. Why? I want you to explain something I don't know. Okay? Well, the first is, it's because of a fear of the unknown. Jen Ann here put in the comments, hey, David, bring up the comments here so everybody can see it. She put, not being able to plan for the unknown is a huge obstacle in my weight loss, right? Not being able to plan for the unknown. But isn't the unknown known? Like, something unknown is coming. That's going to happen. It's not a mystery. You're going to have a situation coming that you couldn't see coming. So what you need to do is begin practicing how to handle the unknown, how to handle the unpredictable. Well, let's take a look at this choice a little different. Let's really crack this open. Why do we not want to go through the unknown? Because you see, on the other side of this choice, it's not one option, but it's a whole spider web of options, right? Haven't you really done this? You have exhausted every possible way of handling stress at work. Stress with your kids. Stress with your finances. Stress with your weight. Stress with this. Stress with that. You've gone down all the rabbit holes. You've done the gorge yourself at night. You've done the not gorge yourself at night. You've done the stay up binging TV. You've done the getting mad at people and blowing up at them. You've tried all sorts of things. And you've actually know that most of these forks, probably all the ones you've found so far, they don't end in a place that in the long term you're happy with. You might enjoy yourself along the way, but they ultimately end with you being unhappy. Well, what about the other side? Why do we not just take this side then? If we already know that all the other stuff leads to where we don't want to be, why do we not just take the new one? It seems so obvious, like, right, all the other paths take me where I don't want to go, so I should do something new. Why do we go this way? It's because it doesn't look like this. What it actually looks like is it looks like this. You've got the fog of the unknown. Yeah, I could do this thing I've never done before. You can see the logical next step. What do I need to do? Well, I need to not eat this food in front of me. Well, what will happen if I don't do that? I don't know. I always do. I have no idea. Someone screamed at me at work, just hollered at me. Customer was just totally an ass. How do I handle that? Well, usually I sit there and I think terrible thoughts about myself all day and think, maybe I deserved it. And then I feel really bad. And then I go home and I tell myself I need to unwind and decompress. So I dive into a video game and I enhance it with some tasty, delicious food. And then I go watch a movie and then I Say I got to have my me time and I stay up till 2 a.m. getting my me time because, I had a bad day. That's what I normally do. Well, I guess I could just not do any of that, but I always do that. I don't know what would happen if I didn't. I don't know how I could handle it. I'm in so much pain. And I know doing this activity would make me feel better. I mean, why wouldn't I do it? But that fog, it'll keep you stuck, won't it? So we're here going through life not knowing that somewhere up ahead is a triggering event. We know it. We know it is coming. We don't know when. We don't know what intensity. We don't know how it's going to play out. We just know it's going to happen. And then we find ourselves in our moment. The moment's here. We have been triggered. And now we find ourselves faced with the choice. You now have the choice. Okay, well, let's take the new path, right? We could take the new path, but I'll shade my person red here to illustrate. You feel fear here. Genuine, real, true fear. That's what you feel when you get here. And so what do we often do when we feel fear? What do many humans do? Many humans, if they're going this way and they feel fear, they just turn around the other direction. Yes or no? What do? When you get absolutely terrified, do you run towards it or do you run away from it? When life tells you everything you're about to do is going to be wrong. You see, fight or flight response, you have to remember, you're not an animal. You can actually change. You can condition yourself to respond differently. You might have always responded by running away. But in fact, you could start running towards it, the thing that scares you. You could start running into the unknown. But what do we often do because we're scared? And not only are we scared, doing the new thing would be hard. We might not feel very good at it. We go to the path more often traveled, the one we know. I get yelled at work. Well, now I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do this. And we follow this same old pattern that we do all the time, continuing to follow our pattern till eventually we find ourselves at that place. Maybe for some people, let's say in this particular example, it ends with emotional eating and staying up late. And you wake up the next morning, the X is you the next morning waking up, looking back, going like, why did I do that? What? Forget weight loss. Forget weight loss for a second. Why did I just stay up till 2 a.m. playing video games or watching movies or watching TV or scrolling on my phone, just eating the whole time to the point like I actually feel uncomfortable with how much I ate. I mean, I was up all night coughing up bile because of my debilitating acid reflux. Why did I do that again? I know when I eat that food, I'm going to be up all night hacking up acid. And yet I did it anyway. Why? Why would I do that? That's what this X is. You find yourself at that place. But you know what? I'm familiar with that one. I know it. I've done it twice this week already. And you know what happens? I get to do it again. That's what happens. I just get to do it again. Because it was fun getting there, right? It's like drinking. It's fun drinking until you get to the other side of it. You're like, whoa, drinking not so fun no more. Well, that's kind of what it's like with the food sometimes, right? So that's what it's like sometimes with the sit-a-thon. When I say sit-a-thon, where you sit for 6 weeks, right? Like your body doesn't feel better when you sit basically still for 6 weeks. But that's what I did. And I know how terrible it felt. And yet I'd keep doing it again and again. And again. But you see, when you made this decision, right now you're looking at this, you have all these other choices that could have been made. The reality is once you make your decision, all the other decisions are gone. They don't exist anymore. Because once you say yes, you say no to everything else. Every other option that could have been picked, you just said no to. And once you've made your committed decision and taking action, those options no longer exist in the past. They're gone. They couldn't have happened. And what happens is this little zigzag line that you took now just becomes the line. It's behind you and you're looking to the future now. Everything is behind you. All right. What did we say yesterday? Something that, again, it's another one of those no duh, Chris moments. Hindsight is 2020. Hindsight is 2020, isn't it? So what do we sometimes find ourselves doing? What if our old pattern actually is to do this, to make the decisions that put us where we don't want, but an extension of our pattern is to then just, turn around and go ruminate a little bit, right? Let's go look at the past with the benefit of hindsight, with some clarity, knowing how everything played out. We're going to forget the fact that we didn't know all this stuff on the beginning end. But, here we are. But we have to remember, when we start looking at the past, we discover something. The past isn't just choices. There's this entity back there. And you notice it. Who's this person in my memories? Who's this person with these thoughts that I know in my memories? And you're looking at that person and you now see them. They're finally at the triggering event and you're just looking at them. You're looking at that person in the past, this mirage, this shadow, this not actually real person anymore. And you're looking at them and now you're looking at the web of choices from the future, looking to the past, going, oh, these are available. Gosh, I can see that this is the path I chose. I can see this is the way I went. But because I have the benefit of hindsight, and I'm over here, I can look at all these decisions and go, aha, this is the problem right here. This is the problem decision. I see what I did wrong. I made the wrong choice right here. This is it. We're not going to look earlier, but we're going to say right here, this is the choice. And what are we going to do? We're going to look at this figment of our imagination, wandering over through these choices that were already made and thinking, that person should have, instead of the choice they should have made this choice. You see where the green arrow is? They should have made that choice. That's what that person should have done. They should have done this. But what is this person doing? They're standing there looking at the past, looking into the mind of a person in the past and rehashing alternative realities. Juan here put in the chat, I like it. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, right? That's exactly it. And the problem is we're doing this thinking, it's easy just to take a moment and do this. But what ends up happening? We find ourselves, we just stay in it. Next thing we know, a whole bunch of time has passed and we're over here ruminating off on what could have been, what might have been, how it could have been different. Looking backwards, we're trying to drive while looking in the rearview mirror the whole time. But the reality is, all of this time was wasted staying in the past, analyzing a ghost of ourselves. You're over there being critical of a ghost. What's the difference between your past self and somebody that died? Nothing. Neither one of them exist anymore. Not here in this realm, not here in this life. Your old self from yesterday don't exist anymore. That person's not here. But man, in our minds, it sure can feel like that person's here, can't it? It can sure feel like those old scenarios are here. We go back in time, always wishing that it was different. But you know what this does? This keeps us focused on the past. What did we say keeps us focused on the past yesterday? Fault finding. Blaming. Fault finding and blaming will keep us stuck in the past. And what did I say just a little bit ago? This choice will be hard at first. This choice will be hard at first. It'll be very, very difficult at first. C.S. Lewis, I referenced a quote, and today let's look at the actual quote, said, "A familiar captivity is frequently more desirable than an unfamiliar freedom." A familiar captivity is frequently more desirable than an unfamiliar freedom. So when we're standing here at this choice, this path here will require you to face your fear. It'll require you to look at the things you don't want to do. Maybe I can't handle it. Maybe I'll embarrass myself if I fail. Maybe I'll get really out of breath. Maybe I'll get stuck. Maybe I'll find out I'm not in as good a shape as I think I am. Maybe I'll find out I don't know how to navigate this. I think some part of our mind usually knows when we embark on that path, we're going to find our shortcomings. And if you think finding your shortcomings is bad, that's going to bring up fear because you're going to try to protect yourself. But you must continue to face your fear till the new patterns become familiar. That's what you got to do. It can seem shockingly fear-inducing to say no to emotional eating when you first start doing it. It can feel very, very weird to do that. It can be fear-inducing. But did you know you can do it enough that you actually become comfortable with it? Bring up the chat. To those of you, my weight loss warriors, those of you who've been losing weight for a long time, you've lost over 50 pounds. Give me a 1 in the chat if you now view hunger differently than you did before. You don't look at it the same way. You've changed how you see it. You see, just something as simple as hunger. Now, I'm going to put words in some of these individuals' mouths here, so to speak. Many people started off believing that hunger was scary and bad and you shouldn't feel it. And then somewhere along the lines, you begin to realize, oh, hunger's fine. I should feel it several times a day right before I eat. I should just do it. It should be normal. There's nothing wrong with hunger at all. But many people have a fear of hunger. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. So what exactly is the choice? Let's really get to brass tacks. Let's simplify it as much as we can. Because the simpler we can make it, that's what you can carry with you. So the first thing we need to do is let's reword these. Let's get rid of these here. And make it, again, we want to simplify. So how about the path more traveled and the path less traveled? How about that? So the choice is to do the uncomfortable and unfamiliar thing. That's the choice. That's the choice that's coming for you later. I don't know when it's coming, but it's coming. To do the uncomfortable and unfamiliar thing. I felt very weird, very uncomfortable to go for a 3-mile walk run, a wog, as I'd call it at the time. Mostly walking. A little running in it, though, too. It felt like a huge deal that I took myself out to go 3 miles. Huge deal. I mean, like, it took me an hour and a half to do it. And I was like, I have done a big thing. You know why I felt that way? Because I'd never did it. It was a big thing for me. Is it a big thing for me now? No, not really. But that's because I've run 3 miles a lot of times. The novelty of it has wore off. But when it was brand new, it was very interesting. Here's a success principle that I want you to adopt. Become comfortable with taking uncomfortable action. If you can become comfortable with doing the uncomfortable, you do that for a few years, you'll need a telescope to see where you started. You will be so far away from where you began if you can become comfortable with doing the uncomfortable. But if to you it is important to always be comfortable, to never be in pain, to never endure a little willful suffering, to never just sit in your emotions, the negative ones, for a day or two or a week. If you look at that as just bad, I'll never do it, then you won't change. Because you're not going to act out of alignment with your belief systems. If you believe it is bad to be in pain, you should never be in pain, and you should just be out of it right now, well, then you won't ever put yourself in a position that might cause you to feel it. So what's the choice? When you get here and you look past the next action, because often what you'll find is when you like, all right, I think I'm going to do the new thing. I think I'm going to do the new thing. When you get here and you look at the next action that you can usually pretty clearly see, but then you go to the other side of that action and all you see is unknown. All you see is question marks. I don't know where any of these roads lead. So the question is, do I or do I not head into the unknown? Do I or do I not head first into the unknown? You see, because when you get here and you feel the fear and you act anyway, you're stepping into your courage. You are in that moment living your life from a place of courage. One of the keys for many of you, I don't know who, but for many of you, to getting success is you must begin to live your life from a place of courage and stop living your life from a place of fear. If every time you feel fear show up and you go the other direction from it, that means you let fear rule your life. That means fear is how you govern yourself, what you should and shouldn't do. That's okay. It's a natural progression. But that's not where this journey ends. The other side of this is you begin to recognize, aha, I do feel fear. I do let fear stop me from moving forward towards the thing I need to do. I see it now. I mean, I see it retroactively most of the time, but I recognize I'm doing it. And what you'll begin to do is you'll slowly begin to be able to see yourself, letting fear guide you in the moment. It's really easy to find it retroactively, but it doesn't do you any good because you can't change it. What's done is done. What's happened, happened. But the future, well, that's not set. That's not set at all. Not set at all. And when you begin to live your life from a place of courage, which means feeling fear and acting anyway. I once used to think the biggest champions were fearless. No, they're not fearless. They feel fear and act anyway. And when you are acting from a place of courage and you look at that unknown, you'll just step right into it. You'll step right into the unknown and see what's there. Robert Frost wrote one of my favorite poems of all time. You might have even heard it. And it's very applicable to what we're talking about today. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could. To where it bent in the undergrowth. Two roads diverged in a wood, the path of my old patterns that I've always taken. And sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler. Because you see, when you make a decision, you have to make a decision. You can only go down one path. When it's decision time, it's time to act. And when you act, what did I show you earlier? All the other decisions go away. You can't do them anymore. You've already acted. And sometimes we look down the old familiar path as far as we can to see what's waiting for us there. But then the other path, just as fair, having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. What I love about the visual here in this poem is the path is not traveled very much, but what's interesting is when you look in front of you, it doesn't seem like they're much different. It seems like option A, option B, they're not too far off from each other. It seems like the two choices are kind of right next to each other. And both that morning equally lay. In leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. What I like about this is the visual again implies that looking in front, no leaves had trodden black. No one had yet walked down this path. You had not yet walked down this path. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by. And that has made all the difference. I recited this line to myself throughout my journey a lot. Because I didn't just start doing this with my weight loss. I started doing it with my entire life. My entire life. When faced with a choice, I started going, just don't do what you did before. Do anything other than what you did before. Because I started realizing if I knew how to lose weight and keep it off, I'd have done it by now. If my intuition was capable of getting me there, I was old enough and been trying at this long enough that I'd have done it by now. So clearly my intuition's wrong. Clearly my knowledge is flawed. Clearly I believe something to be true that isn't true, and I'm making decisions based off that. And it's not working. Clearly there's things I don't know that if I knew them, I would act different. And because I don't even know what it is I don't know, I'm making mistakes and I'm finding myself stuck. And I found the best way to get myself to change was just to instead, when faced with a choice, go, what do I always do? Don't do that. What do I always do when I want to lose weight? I starve myself. Let's not do that. What else do? I cut out whole food groups, usually carbs. Let's not do that. I go from zero exercise to exercising like crazy. Let's not do that. I start weighing in every day, day one, and start telling myself that I have to see weight loss all the time or I'm a failure. Let's not do that. Literally anything that my intuition would tell me to do, be like, let's just not do that. What do we do instead? I don't know, just not that. Anything but that. Because I've been doing it and it ain't working. And the problem is I don't know which decisions I've been making have been working. Let's just throw out the whole lot. Let's go down pathways I ain't never been down before. There's another truth, though, that if you don't adopt this truth, you will find it very challenging to take the new path. You will find it very challenging to take the new path. And that truth is your past does not predict your future. Many people believe their past is an indicator of how it's going to go in the future. Sure, in some parts of life, that's the case. But when it comes to humans and how we live our lives, no. Are you likely to repeat yourself in the past? Sure. Sure. But that doesn't mean you're going to. There always has to be a first time, doesn't there? There's always got to be a first time you make the change that sticks. You always has to be a first time you decide to make a change and say, I'm going to come back from failure no matter how many times I fail. You see, you could have a person here on a timeline saying, look at all these failures in my past. I had that one. There I lost 30 pounds, gained it all back. No, look at this diet. This one I lost 15 pounds, gained it all back. I had this epic diet. I lost 75 pounds. Gained it all back plus some. And then later on, I went on this diet, lost 30 pounds. Gained it all back. Then I went on this diet. This diet lasted through Monday. And it started on the same Monday. That one didn't work. And then this diet right here. I made it a whole whopping 3 weeks. Then it just got too difficult and I stopped. And then this one right here, I lost 40 pounds and I gained it all back plus an extra 40 for my troubles. It would be so easy to look to the past and just say, look at all my failures. That means I'm going to fail in the future. Because you see, in the past, I have all these failures. That's what that's going to mean. He who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right. A man named Confucius said that, I believe. I can tell you I've seen that to be true. If you say you can't, you'll be right. Because it's easy enough to make your self-fulfilling prophecy come true. It's very easy. But what if you instead said, look at all this past experience. I went on this diet. This diet, I did keto. I cut out all the carbs. And it worked, and I lost a little bit of weight, but I couldn't stick to it, and I gained it back. So this diet, I decided not to do the keto. This is the one where I did that shakes diet. They gave me, 800 calories a day. They gave me an appetite prescription, suppressant prescription, so I could take that. Lost a bunch of weight with that one. Oh, but then I had this one here. This was the Optavia, a.k.a. the network marketing of starvation diets. Oh, and then I had this diet right here. This is where I went on the Weight Watchers. And then I got this diet here where I did this, where I did the keto again, and then I did the keto again, and then I did the keto again, because I just kept saying, maybe I'm just not doing it hard enough. Maybe I just need to just double down. And, really, so I got this old buddy of mine. His name is Loki. And he said this thing once to a guy named Thanos that said, I consider experience. If you get the reference, you'll get the reference. The reality is every single weight loss journey in your past is just experience. That's all it is. I was a friggin' expert on weight loss. I had done it a lot more than most people. I mean, I've lost hundreds of pounds over the course of my life. Hundreds of pounds. I mean, I've gained hundreds too, but we're going to ignore that part. I'm really good at the weight loss part. And I'm willing to bet if I sit down with a lot of you and look to your past, we'll see that you're that way. Give me a 2 in the chat if you're in the multi-100+ pound weight loss club, as in you've lost that much over the course of your life, more than hundreds of pounds. Give me a 2 in the chat. I want to see twos, right? We've lost lots of weight. That ain't our problem. That ain't our problem at all. You see, I started looking to my past and realizing I don't have a weight loss problem. Do you have a weight loss problem? I'll bet you don't. All right, maybe for some of you ain't figured out the formula yet, but I assure you, you can lose weight. We just got to find your formula. What you probably actually have, the problem probably all of us share, is a weight gaining problem. Whenever we're not dieting, we're gaining our weight back. That means you're forgetting the option 3. Lose weight, gain weight, maintain weight. Did you know some people go through traumatic events in life and maintain their weight? Did you know some people do that? Do you know some people go through traumatic experiences and they lose weight? Some people go through traumatic experiences and they gain weight. Did you know that there's not one right way to do it? It's a choice. It's just a choice. It's not one choice though, right? I never said I want to gain weight. That's the goal. I never set that as the goal. It was the unintended byproduct of all of the choices I was making over time. It was never the plan. It was just the outcome. And so I had to start shifting to looking to my past as experience, as knowledge, as insights that I could gain, examples of what not to do. The reality is my past was showing me a lot of what not to do. And I could learn from it. And I'm willing to bet a lot of you it's the same thing. You can look to your past and find a lot of lessons. But if you are unwilling to look back there and look at yourself without being critical, that's going to be hard. We started with a self-love exercise yesterday because we've got to at once begin improving your self-love. How was that exercise yesterday for y'all that did it? How was that? Right? I saw several of y'all people in the Facebook group talking about it and your experience. Did you feel an emotion when you did that? Was it a shockingly emotional experience? Was it interesting how cathartic it was? How good it made you feel? Did any of you find that when you sat down to do it, you thought it was going to be hard, and then after about 15 minutes into it, you're like, oh, wow, I actually want to keep going? Reading the chat here, I cried. It was very difficult. It was good. I felt empowered. Felt like a self-hug. I feel so much resistance. It was interesting and hard, but good. I felt hesitant to do it, but it was so powerful. It's a great experience to do this. Did you know you could just keep doing it? Did you know you don't even have to do it as just a letter? Consider this for a moment. What if the love songs that are often written for others, what if they were directed at yourself? Wouldn't that be interesting? Wouldn't that be interesting if the love songs were for yourself? Some of my favorite lines from some of my favorite love songs, they're very powerful when you listen to them and you direct it inward. One of my favorites, as an example recently, from Callum Scott, At Your Worst, as it's called. You know I love you at your worst. Here right beside you when it hurts. Don't you know I would die for you? It's the least that you deserve. What if you said that to yourself? What if you said to yourself, I love you at your worst? I would go to the ends of the earth for you. What if you said that to yourself? There's another song that I've really enjoyed listening to by Andy Grammer. And the line goes, I want to love myself without needing someone else to say it to me. Isn't it interesting how we struggle to accept self-love unless somebody else says it's okay? Isn't it interesting that we can struggle with that? Isn't it interesting how stuck that can leave us feeling? So to those of you that haven't done it yet, I want to invite you to not forget about the homework from yesterday. Don't forget about that. I don't want you to forget about that at all. But now let's go ahead and move on to today's homework, because I'm going to give you another bit of homework to do between now and tomorrow. It's going to be a very interesting one. It'll be very easy to do, but it'll also be very hard to do too. Technically and mechanically, it's going to be very easy. But I find the easiest things to do are the easiest things not to do. They're easy to forget. They're easy to do it later. They're easy to do, oh, I just didn't think about it. Or, oh, I wasn't sure what to do. It's easy to say you overthought it when you just didn't think about it at all. It's easy to also overthink it and actually overthink it, right? Don't overthink this one. It's really pretty simple. I like exercises that are simple. How simple was yesterday's? Write a love letter to yourself and drop it in the mail. And then read it. Like it's a pretty simple exercise, but the simplest stuff can be the most transformative. So your next homework is the Do It Differently Day. For the next 24 hours, I want you to do it different. What does that mean? Here it is. Whenever you're faced with a choice where you have a this is how I always do it action or thought, do anything other than what you normally do. And I mean, let me give an example. Let's say there are 3 different routes to go to work and you always take a particular route because it's the fastest. Take a different one. Tomorrow, take a different route to work. Let's say you normally have a breakfast have a different one tomorrow. Let's say you normally work all the way through the morning and you don't take any breaks. Take breaks tomorrow. Let's say you never exercise tomorrow. Let's say you never pay attention to your hunger throughout a day. Pay attention tomorrow. Let's say whenever someone yells at you and you feel like, bleh, and you want to lash out or beat yourself up or lash out at them, you don't. Let's say when, let's say you come home and your spouse left the kitchen a mess and you normally would be like, I'm going to go give it, maybe you just don't. Look at however or maybe you're like, well, I'm just going to let it go. Maybe you need to go, let me get it, let me talk to them about it. Literally just do the opposite. Whatever you do, just don't do it. Just do it different. I'm not saying go do the opposite, not get your goals. Let's say you're like, well, Chris, my normal right now is to be at a calorie deficit. Are you saying tomorrow I should not be in a calorie deficit? No. Still work towards your goals, right? Let's use the get to work example. I didn't say don't wake up, or I didn't say wake up and you normally go to work. Don't go to work. All right. I'm not saying don't do your goals. I'm saying get there a different way. So if your goal is to go to work, get there a different way. If your goal is to be at a calorie deficit tomorrow, be in a calorie deficit again in a different way tomorrow. Right? I want you to become comfortable with doing something different. That's what I want you to do. It's just the do it different day. Nothing complicated. Nothing crazy. You don't have to write it down. You can if you want, but I think that'll make this cumbersome. I just want you to, in your head, practice being in the moment and being on the lookout for decisions that you're making all day long. There's so many of them that you're handing to your subconscious. So many of them. So the do it differently day. Whenever you're faced with a choice where you have a, this is how I always do it, action or thought, do anything other than what you normally do. Anything. It's up to you how far you want to take this. If you normally get up late, get up early. If you normally stay up late, go early. If you normally go to bed early, stay up a little late. I don't know. Have fun with this. Just do it different. Because what you're going to do is get your mind used to getting outside of its normal ruts. And that can be a really tricky thing. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 10-minute break. And then we're going to come back and we're going to pick up on part 2 and wrap up for the evening. We're going to go to about another 30 minutes from this point now. So we'll come back, have about 20 minutes, and then we'll wrap up for the night. So, David, cue the break. See you all shortly. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. David, can you bring up the feed? I just realized I can't bring it back. There we go. All right. Let's wrap up tonight by explaining this concept in a slightly different way using the whiteboard here. So this is something when I do coaching with weight loss, this is a concept I explain many, many, many times because this is really important to experience. Humans tend to pick what's easy. That's what we tend to do. We tend to pick what's easy. We probably wished we wouldn't, but we do. But we do. So what we have is, we got our person here. And as I said, they're going along, and we already demonstrated earlier the choice, right? And the choice is to go this way. And I'm just going to put, because it's a problematic behavior that many of us have, I'm just going to put emotionally eat. I understand in the realm of emotional eating, this does not manifest the same way for everybody in every situation. Sometimes an emotional eat is nothing more than an emotional support granola bar every 3 o'clock every afternoon. Sometimes it's, demolishing an entire pizza at night from Pizza Hut. That was mine. So, all right, all sorts of different things. But we're just going to put this here. You populate it with whatever it means to you. And then we have over here, we have the something else. Now, in this case, they look like normal patterns. But you see, here's what happens, is your brain, and we're going to use red here, your brain goes along and then it makes this path and it engages this way. And then it goes along and then another time it does this. And then it goes along and then it does this. And then it goes along and then it does that. Then it goes along. Because your brain, every time it encounters this right here, which is what? Our trigger. Whenever you encounter the trigger, your brain goes the way it always goes. Every time your brain does this, it's literally forming neural pathways to reinforce this. And the mind's going to start to become even more effective and efficient. And it'll slowly even begin to round the corner, metaphorically speaking, looking almost for shortcuts to getting yourself to the emotional eating. Literally to the place that you will preemptively emotionally eat. Your mind will predict a trigger is coming and preempt it. Let me give you an example. Take the whiteboard away. A really, really simple example from my old life. When I wanted to make a hot dog at night for a snack, I didn't make one. I made 3. 3 hot dogs at 260 calories apiece, plus bun, plus a half slice of cheese on each one, plus some ketchup. And why did I make 3? Because I'm going to probably want 3. I usually want 3, so why not just make 3? I always made 3. I put them in a little triangle on the microwave because, they microwave more evenly without having one in the middle. I did it enough to really optimize that. I knew down to the second how long to put them in there, and I still usually hit the microwave button a second early because my ass was impatient. And then I'd pull them out, and I'd put them in, and I'd take them down to my man den, and I'd eat them. All 3 of them. But usually, it's not like I ate them all at once. That's not usually what I did, is I ate one, and then went about to do my thing. Hot dog. And then I'd have another one doing my thing. Hot dog. And then I'd eat it, right? So use this example, the Andes Mint analogy. Unless you've been to Olive Garden recently, chances are you probably haven't had an Andes Mint in the last week. Chances are, unless you plan to go to Olive Garden, you aren't going to have an Andes Mint in the next week. So if you get an Andes Mint, right, something has to have changed for that to happen. But let's say I walked into your house and I took a bowl of Andes Mints and I set it on the counter in your kitchen. What are the odds that in the next week you're going to have 1 Andes Mint? Just 1. What are the odds you're going to do that? If there's a bowl of them sitting in your kitchen, odds are probably pretty good that you're going to have 1. Odds are probably pretty good you're going to have 1. And then you got to ask yourself, did you get it because you wanted it or did you get it because it was there? Right? You will often go for what's convenient and you will often go for what is there. So your brain will literally go, well, I need to buy this food and I need to keep it at home because I'm probably going to want it later because I'm probably going to get stressed. And so I need to already have this. I need my emotional support Cheetos. I got to have them because I'm probably going to be stressed. And when I'm stressed, I need my Cheetos. I had a Cheeto thing too. So when you're looking in your past, when you're making your decisions on what you do, bring back the whiteboard, your mind is constantly reinforcing this to the point that you've pretty much forgotten this other path even exists. Doesn't even exist anymore. All that exists is this. And now here comes along, you've decided you wanted to lose weight, and you've come and you've talked to this guy named Chris, or you've talked to some other person, and you're like, I need to start losing some weight. And they're like, what do I do instead of emotional eating? And we're like, well, there's a lot of things you could do. Well, I need an idea. Anything but emotional eating work. No, I need a specific idea to do because I'm trapped in my patterns. Okay, well, why not, I don't know. A lot of people have good success with journaling. Actually, you know what? No, you probably won't do that one. Let's give you an even easier one. How about just going on a 15-minute walk? A lot of people have had good work with that, right? That's helped them really bring the stress in, just going on a 15-minute walk. And so now the person's going through life. We'll use yellow here so we can see it in contrast. The person's going through life, and then they get to their trigger right here. Right? So right here, they're at their trigger. And they're like, all right, I got to get myself to choose this path. But look at the pathway. Here's how I like to visualize this. Imagine you're in a wood, and there is a brightly lit paved path. A brightly lit paved path in that wood. And to the right, you see a dark, shadowy, maybe game trail. Maybe. It's pretty overgrown. You're not sure. It could just be a thing you're seeing. Which path are you likely to take? Which path are you likely to take, right? You're probably going to take the well-lit path. Bring it to the whiteboard. And so what you got to do is when you get here, you have to remember that your mind is not going to want to do this. You've got to do whatever it takes to get yourself to do the new thing because you need to get a rep in. You need to get a rep of doing the new thing. And the challenge is it doesn't always work the first time. So what I found helped is if I told myself, do this or that didn't usually work well. So what I told myself, tell you what, self, let's make this easy. You can do this, and if that doesn't work, then you can emotionally eat. You can do it if you want. Just go for the walk first. I ain't telling you no to the tacos. I ain't telling you no to the Cheez-Its. I ain't telling you no to the Wheat Thins. I ain't telling you no to the tub of peanut butter. You can have all that stuff, self. Just go on a damn 15-minute walk first. Just do it first. Because then it's easier to convince your brain to go, all right, we'll try this. Nope, that didn't work. Let's go and emotionally eat. Because next time, we need to get you to do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. And we've got to get it where you're taking this path. And yes, you might be thinking, well, why would I do that? I'm emotionally eating. Well, you see what we've done, though? We've at least added 15 minutes of walking. That wasn't being done before. That's new. And you know what? I'm willing to bet, because I know from firsthand experience, you won't always emotionally eat. There'll be many times you'll go on the 15-minute walk and you go, I actually feel better. I feel better. I don't think I need to do that anymore. And you won't turn to the food. But your mind is so habitualized to going this direction, to going this path, that is going to be tremendously difficult to get your brain to not do it. Tremendously difficult. This right here is why weight loss is hard. This is why people struggle. It's not because you're insulin resistant. I get it, you're insulin resistant, but insulin resistance isn't an excuse to be gaining weight. And on and on and on and on and on and on. It might make it hard to lose weight. Yeah, that's true. But it's not an excuse to go, look, insulin resistance isn't what made me demolish the donuts that I told you about yesterday. It wasn't that. Insulin resistance had nothing to do with it. What had to do with that is I wanted to feel better, and Krispy Kreme donuts are delicious, and I liked eating them. And I didn't think I could lose weight, so why did I even care? And so as you're going through this, you've got to recondition your mind. Your mind works like muscles. Take the whiteboard away. If I were to take this arm right here and put it in a sling and leave it there, never use it, pretty soon that's just how it would be. The muscles would atrophy. It actually wouldn't work as well anymore. I might even eventually, if I left it there long enough, I would lose the use of this arm. It would atrophy so bad. It's probably going to take a long time for that to happen. But if at the same time, I'm strengthening up this arm, doing all sorts of exercises, this arm's going to get big and strong, and this arm's going to get weak. Because the body works this way. What you don't use, you lose. What you use will get better, or at a minimum, stay about the same. Your mind works the exact same way. What you use, you keep. What you don't use, you lose. How many of you used to be conversational in a language and now you talk maybe as good as an infant? Right? Me. Used to be conversational in sign language. I could tell you my name and ask where the bathroom is and tell you I'm hungry. Right? Like, I'm pretty much useless for the most part. I could get myself fed and go to the bathroom. I guess that's the important stuff. I play the guitar terribly. Why? Because I don't practice it anymore. I lost it. It's gone from my memories. Well, consider that choices work the same way. The way you respond to stress, you're going to need different muscles. And one of the muscles you're going to have is you're going to have to become comfortable with stepping out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to become comfortable with stepping into an area where you might make mistakes. You're going to have to become comfortable with taking uncomfortable action as a result of stepping into the unknown, as a result of doing something for the first time. That's how you're going to get to the success you're trying to find, is by becoming comfortable with uncomfortable action, by looking at the fork in the road and choosing a different path, recognizing that your mind is not going to want to let you do this. Your mind is going to fight back. Your mind is going to fight back. Bring back the whiteboard, please. So, we have a timeline. And as we mentioned, you're going to have a triggering event occur. We'll just put TE for that. And what we don't want to have happen is you're going to have the triggering event and you're going to take all your action on the other side of it. What I don't want you to do is live your life constantly looking back. You can't change the past from the present. The past is how it was. You cannot change your future self by trying to change yourself in the past. It doesn't work that way. The way to get different results in the future is you have to begin to handle yourself here. At the time of the triggering event and before the action, you need to be witnessing what you're doing, how you're thinking, how you're acting. You must learn how to become present and aware in the moment. And it's going to be hard because a triggering event by extension is going to be triggering off habitual thought patterns. In the Guild, we have a whole thing about habitual thought patterns. It's like a string of dominoes. You're going to have to, metaphorically speaking, get your finger in there between the dominoes to stop the reaction from going. Because if you're only working on your habitual thought patterns, if you're only working on how you act when you're triggered retroactively, you're going to find that you're not going to change very much. You'll do it some over time. It's better than nothing, but it is not going to be enough to get you there. You're going to have to become aware. You're going to have to see something happen and go, oh, wow, that really got me upset. I'm really feeling that. Wow, holy cow, my brain is screaming at me to go get some food. My brain is screaming at me to go dive into a TV show. You have to be at a place that you can hear. I call it the other voice. You can hear the other voice talking to you. You've got to get to the place you can hear that voice and you can respond to it. Live, in the moment. And one of the ways that we're going to do that, and to help you get there, because you're not going to change this stuff overnight. I hope you didn't expect to come to a 3-day seminar and think that somehow your entire life's going to suddenly change on the other side of 3 days. I hope you weren't expecting that, because that's not going to happen. Because even if you have one of those full immersion events, after about 90 days when the emotion comes down, the regular part of life's going to set back in again. But I wanted to get you to begin to change, to just begin to see things different. And we need to begin your training. You all need the training on this. I need the training on this. Just as I know all of you need to take steps. All of you need to do resistance training. All of you need to be doing your mindset training. You need to be training your brain. And one of the things that you do by that is doing it different. Keeping your mind used to stepping outside of its comfort zone. Because if you get too ingrained in your pathways, it'll be too hard to change when life comes and requires you to make a change to things. All right. We're going to go up and wrap up here. We will be back tomorrow for the final night where we're going to bring everything to a close. I got a couple of questions I've been teasing, especially the one in the beginning about the yourself. We're going to explain some more of this. And we're going to build to a plan, build to what you can do moving forward, because I'm all about the what's next, knowing what's happening and what's coming. And we're going to talk about that. Where do you go beyond this? Because this is just a journey that you're all on. It's just a journey that you're all on. Where does this go? I don't know. But go do your homework. Go do it different. And if you didn't do yesterday's homework, go do it. Don't wait. I promise. Future you will be very happy to receive a love letter. When's the last time you received a love letter? It's shocking how effective it can be to still hear it from yourself. So good to see you all here. Have a great night, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow. Talk to you later.